The Supreme Court has overstepped its bounds. In a deeply troubling 5-4 decision, the court has mandated the Trump administration to release $2 billion in foreign aid. This ruling, stemming from a lower court order, strikes at the heart of presidential authority and sets a dangerous precedent for the future of our republic. The court's decision to insert itself into the realm of foreign policy, a domain constitutionally entrusted to the executive branch, is a blatant power grab. This ruling is not merely about foreign aid, it is about the very foundation of our government. The Founding Fathers, in their wisdom, established a system of checks and balances to prevent any one branch of government from becoming too powerful. The Supreme Court's decision undermines this delicate balance. It weakens the presidency and threatens to transform our republic into a judicial oligarchy. The implications of this decision are far-reaching. If allowed to stand, it will embolden activist judges to further encroach upon the executive branch's authority. The consequences for our nation's sovereignty and the rule of law are dire. We cannot and must not let this stand. This is not a time for complacency. This is a time for action. We must demand that the other branches of government and the American people rise to defend the Constitution. The future of our republic hangs in the balance. The very foundation of our nation rests upon the principle of separation of powers. The Founding Fathers, recognizing the dangers of concentrated authority, wisely divided the powers of government among three distinct branches: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Each branch was granted specific powers and responsibilities, intended to operate as a check on the others, ensuring that no single branch could amass excessive power. The concept of judicial overreach strikes at the heart of this delicate balance. It occurs when the judiciary, exceeding its constitutional mandate, encroaches upon the rightful authority of the other branches of government. In this case, the Supreme Court's decision to dictate the allocation of foreign aid, a power explicitly granted to Congress and the executive branch, exemplifies judicial overreach at its worst. The judiciary's role, as envisioned by the founders, is to interpret the law, not to create it. When judges abandon their role as impartial interpreters of the Constitution and instead impose their own policy preferences, they undermine the very foundation of our democracy. The consequences of unchecked judicial overreach are dire. It erodes the rule of law, undermines the will of the people, and threatens to transform our republic into a judicial tyranny. We must resist this dangerous trend. Justice Samuel Alito, in his scathing dissent, eviscerated the majority opinion, recognizing it for the dangerous precedent it sets. Joined by Justices Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh, Alito rightly argued that the court's decision represents a gross overreach of judicial power and a blatant disregard for the separation of powers enshrined in the Constitution. Alito's dissent serves as a beacon of reason in a sea of judicial activism. He correctly points out that the Constitution vests the power of the purse firmly in the hands of Congress, not the judiciary. The court's decision to usurp this power is a direct assault on the Constitution and the delicate balance of power it so carefully crafted. Furthermore, Alito highlights the dangerous implications of allowing a single district court judge to unilaterally dictate the allocation of billions of taxpayer dollars. Such a system, he argues, lacks accountability and opens the door to potential abuse and corruption. Alito's dissent is a clarion call to defend the Constitution and the principles upon which it was founded. We must heed his warning and resist the siren song of judicial supremacy. The very survival of our republic depends on it. The court's recent decision evokes the specter of past instances where the judiciary has overstepped its bounds, most notably in the infamous case of Worcester v. Georgia in 1832. In that case, the Supreme Court, under Chief Justice John Marshall, ruled in favor of the Cherokee Nation, declaring Georgia's extension of state law over Cherokee territory unconstitutional. President Andrew Jackson, recognizing the overreach inherent in the court's decision, famously declared, "John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it." Jackson understood that the court's ruling, while legally sound, lacked the practical means of enforcement without the executive branch's cooperation. He refused to enforce the ruling, effectively challenging the court's authority and asserting the executive branch's independence. While some may criticize Jackson's defiance, It serves as a stark reminder that the Supreme Court is not the final arbiter of all matters. The other branches of government have a duty to push back against judicial overreach, even if it means taking a controversial stand. The parallels between Worcester v. Georgia and the current situation are undeniable. Like Jackson before him, President Trump faces a judiciary intent on expanding its power at the expense of the executive branch. He must summon the same courage as Jackson and resist this blatant power grab. Section 5. The President's Duty. Upholding the Constitution against judicial activism. The oath of office taken by every president of the United States is not a mere formality. It is a sacred vow to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. This oath compels the president to stand as a bulwark against any threat to the constitutional order, including the ever-present danger of judicial overreach. When the judiciary strays beyond its constitutional boundaries, it falls upon the other branches of government, particularly the executive, to push back. President Trump, facing a Supreme Court seemingly determined to undermine his administration's authority, has a moral and constitutional duty to challenge this dangerous encroachment. To comply with the court's decision would be to abdicate his responsibility to uphold the Constitution. It would set a dangerous precedent, signaling to activist judges that they can dictate policy with impunity. Such a scenario would irrevocably alter the balance of power in our government, paving the way for a judicial tyranny that would make a mockery of our republic. President Trump must not shy away from this challenge. He must embrace his role as defender of the Constitution and resist the court's overreach. The fate of our republic hangs in the balance. Section 6. A Time for Courage. Why President Trump must stand firm. The current situation demands courage, a quality President Trump has demonstrated time and again. He must now summon that courage to face down a judiciary intent on usurping the powers of the executive branch. The stakes are high, but the alternative, acquiescing to judicial tyranny, is unthinkable. Defying a Supreme Court order is not a decision to be taken lightly. It will undoubtedly spark outrage from the left and their allies in the media. Accusations of authoritarianism and disregard for the rule of law will be relentless. Yet President Trump must not be swayed by these attacks. He must stand firm in his conviction that he is upholding the Constitution, not defying it. The American people are looking for leadership, for someone willing to stand up for what is right, even in the face of adversity. President Trump has a unique opportunity to demonstrate that leadership by challenging the court's overreach. History will judge President Trump not by his willingness to appease the judiciary, but by his courage to defend the Constitution. Now is the time for him to stand firm and protect the republic from those who would undermine it. Section 7. The stakes are high. The perils of unchecked judicial power. The consequences of allowing the Supreme Court's decision to stand unchallenged are dire. It would embolden the judiciary to further encroach upon the powers of the other branches, eroding the separation of powers and ultimately threatening the very foundations of our republic. With each instance of judicial overreach, the judiciary chips away at the legitimacy of the other branches of government. This, in turn, undermines the rule of law and erodes public trust in our institutions. If left unchecked, this trend will inevitably lead to a crisis of governance, as the different branches of government find themselves locked in a perpetual power struggle. Furthermore, an unchecked judiciary poses a direct threat to individual liberty. When judges believe they have the power to impose their will on the other branches of government, they become a law unto themselves, accountable to no one. This is a recipe for tyranny, not democracy. We must not allow this to happen. The stakes are too high, the consequences too dire. President Trump must stand firm against the court's overreach for the sake of our republic and the generations that will inherit it. Section 8. A call to action defending our republic from judicial supremacy. This is not merely a legal battle, it is a battle for the soul of our nation. The Supreme Court's overreach in this case is a symptom of a larger problem, the creeping rise of judicial supremacy. This dangerous ideology, embraced by many on the left, seeks to elevate the judiciary above the other branches of government, making it the ultimate arbiter of all matters. We, the American people, cannot stand idly by while unelected judges usurp the powers entrusted to our elected representatives. We must raise our voices in protest and demand that our elected officials defend the Constitution from this assault. Contact your representatives in Congress and urge them to censure the court's overreach. Support organizations dedicated to upholding the Constitution and the separation of powers. Educate your friends and family about the dangers of judicial tyranny. The future of our republic depends on the actions we take today. Let us rise to the challenge and defend the Constitution from those who would undermine it. Our freedom, and the freedom of generations to come, depends on it. Section 9. Conclusion. Preserving liberty through constitutional equilibrium. The Supreme Court's recent ruling is a stark reminder that our republic faces an existential threat: the erosion of the separation of powers and the rise of judicial supremacy. This dangerous trend, if left unchecked, will ultimately destroy the delicate balance of power that has preserved our liberty for over 2 centuries. President Trump has a moral and constitutional duty to stand against this tide. He must reject the court's overreach not out of defiance, but out of a deep and abiding respect for the Constitution and the principles it embodies. The stakes could not be higher. The future of our republic and the very survival of liberty hangs in the balance. Let us pray that President Trump has the courage and wisdom to meet this challenge head-on. The fate of our nation may very well depend on it.